All right. We were having a little issue with sometimes when the title is too long, it won't stream to YouTube. So fix that. Thanks for your patience, everybody. And now here we go officially. Welcome, everyone in person or via Zoom. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome, bienvenue. To Augmented Creativity with Large Language Models, a quick hands-on workshop exploring how to use AI next generation for research and creation. This event is part of the MDes 22 Research Creation Residency happening at ForSpace right now from May 2nd until the 12th. We are coming to you live from Concordia University's ForSpace, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Jhave, Montreal. And as caretakers for the lands and waters we are meeting on, we are grateful to the Kanyankahawga Nation for their teachings about the earth and our relations. At ForSpace, we work to connect people to the initiatives, research projects, and dialogues happening across Concordia and with our colleagues. So we're super pleased to have the opportunity to collaborate with Harley Smart, who organized this event, and his invited guest, David Jhave Johnston, to help us explore the possibilities of augmenting human creativity with AI. I will let Harley introduce his project and introduce David as well. But before doing so, just letting you know, we are running this as a meeting. You've already noticed that. So that just means we welcome your comments and questions with a raised hand. Feel free to turn on your video and jump in at any time. We'll also keep our eyes on the chat. Those of you in the space who are participating, if you wanted to speak, we'll get a mic to you so that the folks on Zoom can hear you as well. We are live streaming this to YouTube, and I'll put that chat in the link. That link in the chat in just a second. All right, that's enough out of me. Over to you, Harley. Welcome.
Hi there. Thanks a lot, Anna. And thanks to everyone at ForSpace for having us today and all the tech support and everything. Very much appreciated. So my name is Harley Smart. I'm a grad student in Concordia's Design and Computation Arts Master's Program. I've been publishing artist books for almost 20 years now. That's what brought me into the program here at Concordia, this background in independent publishing. So yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for coming in today, and thanks everyone online for joining. I appreciate it. It's beautiful right now in Montreal, so I understand that a lot of people maybe decided that they had something else to do today and get out in the sun. So yeah, I'm here with a friend, David Jhave Johnston. David's an amazing artist, educator, and writer. He's actually helped me a lot with my program and my master's so far, both mentoring, helping with it, understand and learn this technology that we're looking at today. And yeah, how are you doing, David?
I'm well. I'm now microphoned, I think, and heard. Welcome to everyone who's here. I kind of identified as a digital poet for many years, which means I made a lot of language-based art using computers. So today, hopefully we'll introduce you to Harley's work, and then I'll do a quick run through of some of a few of the ethical considerations around large language models, and then we'll try to just play together with these new incredible devices that can help you speak in ways that are kind of extraordinary. So that could be fun, I hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm definitely excited to have David join. I published with Ryan Thompson at Antiism Books, and we had the opportunity to release a book for David, I suppose 2 years ago now, Rewrites Project. So we're gonna have a look at this later today. It's an earlier version of the same technology we'll be using today, but yeah, definitely a huge inspiration, and I'm very stoked to have you here, so thanks, man.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Before I get started, I'm going to just run through a presentation that I've prepared and to show you what I've been using this for. The title for the workshop today, Augmenting Creativity, I mean, it's not like exactly the focus of my research in the grad program, but I thought it was applicable or a decent way to present it to show how to use this technology towards something that you might be doing. And like for myself, it's a very creative practice going to the studio making artist books. So you'll see how I've used it, you'll see how David's used it, and then, but definitely encourage to try this with anything and see how you might be able to apply it in your own writing or creative practice or otherwise. So, and also before we get started, OpenAI website, if you do have a chance, or you have your laptop, feel free to open it up. If you haven't signed up already, it's a free sign up. You just need a phone number. And while I present, it should only take a couple minutes to log in. Yeah, openai.com. I'm just going to paste that in the chat for everyone there. All right, I'm going to screen share. Is that all right, Anna?
Folks in the space, feel free to adjust your chairs to look at the screen. Make yourselves comfortable.
Yeah. Of course. Sorry for that. It'll just be a moment with this. Essentially, my research asked. There we go, yeah.
Can you, sorry, not optimize, not click the optimize button so we don't get those gray boxes?
Of course.
You can just share sound, but don't optimize for video.
Sorry, Anna, and everyone there. I'm just having a little technical difficulty here. Oh yeah, it just okay.
It's all good.
Um,
Okay, so this is the thing that gives us those gray boxes. So we don't want that. But what are you sharing?
I'd like to swipe over this here. I suppose this. Yeah, let's try this.
How is that happening? Is it on Firefox?
Yeah.
It worked when it's shared without the presenter notes.
Okay, let's try that without presenter notes.
That's looking good though, right?
Okay, let's try that. All right, well, I'll just, we'll try this view here. I'm just going to start with this video presentation that friend Patrick Pierce produced for me.
Asks, how can transform the way we make books? The artificial intelligence technology at the center of my work is called GPT-3. GPT-3 is a language prediction model that has used deep learning to train on a vast array of books and internet texts. So when you enter absolutely any type of text prompt, it will continue or respond in a human-like way. There's many approaches to this, but I can give you an example. If I type in the opening paragraph of a given book, GPT-3 will continue on, offering me a text back that continues in the same tone and style of a length of my choosing. My work has been about customizing GPT-3, feeding it with literature I've selected, then crafting prompts detailing artist books. The text transformer then generates specifics for new books, both their content and their physical structure. With this process, I've been able to produce a ton of ideas to bring into the studio. I hope my work can contribute to the field of independent publishing and artist books. People are surprised to see how incredibly simple the process actually is. So maybe my work can inspire them to jump into this new field of AI and begin experimenting. I'd have to compare it to sharing a sketchbook with my 2-year-old daughter. Like her, I see GPT-3 as a creative collaborator, one that surprises me every time we sit down to work together.
Working with the GPT-3, there's a real sense of treasure hunting, so to speak, where we're applying this technology that there's not a whole lot known about it. It's very much a black box technology. So, and applying this to a creative practice such as making artist books. So that's really exciting, and there is this sense of treasure hunting that you get from working through it. So it is an exciting process. So that in itself is rewarding.
All right, so I hope that gives you an idea of what I'm up to here, and I'm going to try and do the presentation here with, well, let's see if I can do it with my notes, Anna. Yeah. All right, so yeah, once again, OpenAI GPT-3. So this is called a large language transformer. I won't jump into too much of the technical explanation here, and maybe David could help me with this later, but essentially it's gathered an enormous amount of literature, both web texts, Reddit, Wikipedia, all kinds of text found on the internet, ebooks, and processes it all and made its own understanding and its own sort of world and understanding of the language. It's using natural language processing, and very simply, like, natural language is what we're speaking, we're writing. This is natural. When you hear natural language processing, and for me, that's sort of a green light to, like, very easy to engage with. So this is a common reference that I've been coming across and found. I think it's a great one, but this first reference found in Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels to this knowledge engine. So Gulliver comes across this one society, and they've constructed this device, and you can imagine all these people turning those cranks and turning, and these are all the symbols and the letters, and it's to generate language and new meaning that they're using this device. So it's definitely a great reference for understanding how GPT-3 functions and how can it perhaps be applied. Another good reference, you had one, David, for a device created in the 1820s, I believe, was Charles Babbage, yeah. So this was perhaps the same, yeah, this is perhaps the first computer. So another one is in 1984, there's the rewrites machine. There's reference to this group that they actually they generate novels and fiction using a device there. So these are maybe some early examples of what you can maybe compare. This is just a screen grab of the playground. So when you do enter into OpenAI, the API, the playground view here, you see you have a few parameters on the side. You can adjust a few of the adjustments can be made, but essentially you can just start typing right in virtually anything, and it's going to predict what the next word will be. So whatever you place here, it's going to calculate and decide what to offer next. Very similar to what you would do with your phone, with your smartphone. So depending what you place here, this is going to be your prompt from the machine. And I've read the comparisons to it being like a piano. You can sit down and hit at a piano. Anybody can do this, but there really is a skill to prompt engineering. And I think maybe a background or like an ability in language and writing and English and grammar that could really help you with this if you're strong in these areas. So this is an example I love to share. Of course, you'll see very quickly that you can create another example just like this in no time at all. But it is a great early example that came out in 2020 by Aram Sabeti. He posted this to a website. And so in the bold text here, you'll see that's his prompt. So he's written this, almost literal instruction for what's to follow. So here's a short rhyming poem by Dr. Seuss about Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, which is building brain implants to achieve symbiosis with AI. Neuralink's mission statement is, if you can't beat him, join him. The poem has a structure typical of Dr. Seuss stories with simple alternate line rhymes. In the poem, Elon explains why we need to merge with AI to save humanity. I won't read the whole poem, but just I have a friend, Elon Musk, who wants to join our brains to AI. He thinks that humans can't compete, so he's going to use AI to cheat. So this continues on and on. Everything in green, the text there is the generation. A very quick way to engage with this and adjust, you simply go in, change the names, change the nouns, the adjectives, start to play with what the output will be, and you'll very quickly see how we can change this. And then that combined with the parameters that we looked at there, you can start to change like what the output is, how long of an output, how creative, how deterministic it is. Another quick example, so on the left, you'll see this bold quote or the prompt, which Aram edited or entered. Here's the transcript of a stand-up comedy routine by Jerry Seinfeld and Eddie Murphy about the problem San Francisco faces with soaring rents, crime, and homelessness. So immediately it just jumps right in. It's been prompted to follow this format of a comedy routine, of a back and forth between two people, kind of a discussion here. So the output reads, Jerry, I was in San Francisco last week and it looks like a homeless encampment. It looks like the last days of Rome. People defecating in the street, stabbing each other. I don't know what's going on up there. So you can almost hear the voices in your head when you read this. And as far as I understand and what I've gathered, like what I've read, it really does go out and pull from what it's gathered online when it did the training. The initial training of GPT-3, whatever was online, whatever news blurbs and media coverage was there, it's pulled from that, and it's able to go and say like, okay, well, this person speaks this way, they talk about these topics, So, and you really do start to hear it when you follow along. So in my studies and in my interest, I've been using this towards authors' books. I just made this quick slide here just to suggest that like really you could use this to generate ideas for absolutely anything. I think that's one of the strongest uses of it. There's, the great uses for GPT-3, translation is a huge one across languages. I think right now it's processing about 27 languages. The output is really excellent. Other ones, continuations, essay generation. There's some new functions now, edit and insert. You can, like an example of this would be to just have a text and you want to add a blurb, or you want to add some filler, or you want to elaborate on something. You can add insert at any point in the text, and it's going to understand, well, what's the structure of this text, what could it add to it, and how long you tell how long you want it to add. There are a number of other applications we'll look at and uses for this, but for me, the idea generation alone has been something to like occupy me the last couple of years playing with this. I had this slide here, just this is a book cover that I salvaged out of a trash can in Nantes in France. I was studying book arts there in 2011, 1999, no. 2011 I was there studying book arts, and I found this one district where there was all these old bookstores, and they would recycle tons of old books and just throw the covers away. They'd recycle the paper. So I collected tons of these, and I swear I learned more from those trash cans than I did from my other studies during my time there, and really like pulling apart and learning about the materials. And that's sort of this like optical approach that I would say I've been taking to GPT-3, and how can I integrate it and into the construction of book binding in the books that I'm making. This is to give you an idea of the more academic questions I've been asking within the grad program. So how can machine learning be used to transform independent publishing? Post-digital publishing, processual publishing, I could maybe describe these. How does it feel to collaborate with an AI? And then how might machine intelligence help with sustainability issues like plastic waste? So I've been experimenting through my program with plastics alongside as a material, like actual physical material element. Plastics has been one of my materials. And then GPT-3, I think in the next iterations of it, as it progresses, it will really have this power to like reveal solutions across different disciplines and materials. So that's super exciting, I think. Machine books is a term I've been using to describe any of these books that I've been producing using ML and using AI or using mixed reality, virtual reality, other elements like that. So anything where there's a real heavy algorithmic or computation process involved. So I've been referring to these as machine books, which was coined by Gregory Chatonsky. He was at UCAM in New Media, but he uses this term too. And hyperproductive. This is a great word to describe the experience of and the output, the capacity of GPT-3 is very hyperproductive, like a lot of the other algorithms being used. This is the first book published using the output from GPT-3. This is Kenrick Alato McDowell, who had this published by Ignota Books in 2020. So during the pandemic, Kenrick had researcher access to the API, and he actually did what's called fine-tuning, and this is where you gather a bunch of texts and literature and process this into GPT-3 to understand it. It's sort of like the prompt engineering. So in this playground window, which I showed you, you can only actually enter in about 15, it's called 1,500 tokens, but this is about similar word count, 1,500 words. This is sort of where it maxes out. So this is where you would give your examples. If you really wanted to dial in a tone and a way of writing, this is where you could give examples of that writing. Fine-tuning allows you to go even deeper, and you can add about 80 megabytes of text, if I recall correctly. So this is what Kenrick did with Pharmaco. He added all sorts of fringe science and psychonautical texts that he'd gathered, and he proceeded to have this conversation over 2 weeks with the machine, and gradually learning. And he did choose or cherry pick out sections that were interesting to share and include. So there was a bit of an editing or deletionist process going on with Pharmaco, but it really most of it is there plainly as it was generated with a bold text, what he was writing, and then the italicized return from the machine. And it goes on, and he comments to the side every once in a while, and he mentions how at a certain point his thinking and he's going to sleep at night, and he's really starting to think in the way of the machine, and gradually it's also starting to imitate his speech or his speaking style or his writing style more and more. It was really a strange read, this book, and it gives a sense of working with the machine. This is another influential book. Amaranth Borsak actually co-published with Concordia Center for Expanded Poetics. I forgot to mention I'm co-publisher of Antiism Books with Ryan Thompson, and we have a book bindery here in Montreal. But we had the opportunity to publish this in 2020, and essentially it's a collection of concise definitions of what the book is. For all the contributors. So 101 contributors, but the first one I just shared here, Indigo Allegra, says, "The book is a time travel device, allowing us to slip into the imagination of a future mind." So I thought this was a great starting place. Like following Pharmaco AI, Kenrick's book, I thought, I could, alter and create my new definitions similar to what's shown here in the book, and maybe use this as an endpoint and a starting point. So some of the completions here that returned. A book is a book. You can't do any of this with a book. You need a computer. A book is a container of thoughts, phrases, and emotions, and the very act of selecting a book and opening the cover is an act of co-creation. So it goes on, and effectively, I was able to just continually generate these. I should note that at this point, I did not have access to GPT-3. Alexander Rebin, an artist in San Francisco, he helped me to generate this. So I provided him with the text. He processed this through. David also was helping me at this point to generate, as he's had early access for the earlier versions as well. So from there, I went, again, using this assisted access to the API, I started generating these actual almost instructions or descriptions of the material construction of these books. So these are somewhat based on others. So here, the Dataroth book, a book made like a sausage, following traditional recipes and using proper spices, but substituting other books as the meat. The cover is a casing of salvaged translucent vinyl. The book measures 40 centimeters long, 8 centimeters thick, and is produced in an edition of 50. So this, I would take descriptions like this and adjust them. One, photos of a cell phone store on Jean Talon, laser printed in black and white on found plastic, bound between salvaged sheets of PVC. So I tried to make a couple, maybe about 100 of these to start. I collected those output in a book here I titled Describing Machine Books. So this book here, I mentioned about the plastics kind of exploration. I challenged myself to entirely make this book out of my household's plastic waste. So the covers are made out of number 2 plastic, HDPE. So this I took to Precious Plastics locally in Montreal. We shredded all the plastic and heat pressed these boards. So I used that as a hardcover. The pages there, I gathered plastic bags, and using an iron, I was able to laminate them into this like almost paper material, leathery kind of material. And then I actually sewed the book using thread cut from pop bottles. So I went on YouTube, I found an instruction for cutting thread using this kind of homemade device, and so had some help sewing the binding there. And so this printed, I collected all those definitions, or kind of cherry picked the ones that made sense that David shared to me and Alexander shared to me, and printed those with a polyethylene ink on the pages with rubber stamps. So that's actually here on display today. It's over on the table. There's just the install view when I was doing the research phase and presentation for class. The different types of plastics all lined up on the table here. Another book, this is one of the earlier generations, a book with a cover made out of a wall from an abandoned factory. That was pretty much the straight output, that description there. There wasn't much to it to that. So I just literally went into our studio, which is an old factory, cut out a section of wall, bound it together with burlap. And since there was no description of the interior, so I ended up actually using some laser scans of the space. I found this data folder in this 3D scanning program of our space, and all these weird like computer vision images of the space. So I flowed that in as the content of the book. So I do have a collection of books over here. Playing in the center of the table is a video generation showing images generated by DALL-E, OpenAI's DALL-E. So it's a scaled down version available online, a free version. Hugging Face hosts this, and it's called Mini DALL-E. But a text prompt, I just pasted these generations that I'm getting, pasted them into the text to image generator, and very quickly, within seconds, it generates these images. So the newer version of DALL-E, it's incredibly realistic and accurate and like coherent images. But this gives you a sense of like playing around this true crime book. So a book made entirely of crime scene photos, police reports, and court documents. The binding is held together with crime scene tape. The cover features a photo of a perpetrator. Yeah, and just again, so quick to be able to generate. I included about 50, perhaps 30 slides in my video generation here, but it's really just time gathering data, processing. This is really just the time, but it's incredibly productive, like hyper productive, this tool. And finally, I wanted to just compare it to, as a chance operation. Oblique strategies. Brian Eno, sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, the proper credits here, but two artists, Brian Eno and another artist, that created this in the 1970s, and it's just a card deck. So this chance where you pull a card, and if say you have writer's block, or you're in the studio, you're looking for an idea, and it's a way to quickly like have like, encouraging creativity, lateral thinking. So this is to support that. And I find is very similar to what we're looking at here. Like the GPT-3 as an idea generator, for me, it falls in this history of chance operations in the studio practice. Great. Awesome. Well, I'd like to have David now.
Yeah.
You ready to do your presentation?
Are there any questions out there? Like we've got a cluster of, I guess you're Zoomers, is that true? Oh, we have a question.
Talking about a lot of things in Jhave, just wondering, for example, what kind of prompts were you asking that you asked it what is a book, and then it gave you a bunch of book as a sausage.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't perhaps too clear on that. With those generations, like say the factory book, so I had given whatever I could fit in that playground window. I probably gave about 10 prompt examples, and then it starts to generate. It starts to see the pattern. It sees a pattern in the language, and it starts to offer more of those. So, and then depending on like the temperature, the controls, the output, you can start to adjust what's going to come up here. But we're going to look at this after David's presentation. We're actually going to go look at the prompts, and you'll see, and we can adjust these live, and you can try them and show us if you like.
Yeah, and the idea of how many people here, like physically or even online, have played with one of these machines? Like an algorithm that produces writing when you talk to it, or a chat bot even? Zero? Okay. And how many have to write essays and reports and all sorts of stuff? So think about it as a potential, as Harley mentioned, with the oblique strategies. It's a potential tool to augment your creativity and intelligence and linguistic aptitude. And it's, from a conventional or traditional viewpoint, one could say, oh, that's cheating. But in fact, it's just accessing, I think, the collected intelligence of humanity. That's what these big, what they call a computer model is actually just a big bunch of math that understands language, the language of humanity over time. And your generation is going to be the first generation to actually really evolve in parallel with these machines. So my presentation, I'll quickly show you, very quickly, because it would be nice to get to the playground. Like we're here for a workshop, so like let's, instead of, I could get really academic on you and all that sort of stuff, but maybe we'll skip that. So is that good? Share sound, don't optimize? I think, yeah, Hannah's, okay. So skipping over here. Yeah, good. See if that works. Oh, it did, sort of. This is a brief video about the project I did with Harley. We don't really need to go into it in much depth. There's no need for sound. Basically, what happened is I wrote, in conjunction with the algorithm, in 1 year, 12 big books of poetry. Either I'm a genius or the machines are very helpful. Or both. Okay, both. Okay, I'll accept both. But so you got 4,500 poems created by one person. Impossible. So what you do is you train it. You use a lot of data, and you use all these open source libraries that are coming from Google, Facebook, Salesforce, OpenAI. They're different kind of techniques. And then their computer can just generate poems like super fast, like crazy little wild, I don't know, strange twists of language. And then what I did to really make the poems more cohesive is I did something called carving. So I go into the output, like it's saved all to a text file. You got all this stuff, and most of it's crap. But if you cut out the bad parts, you kind of get something that's weirdly good. Sometimes. Depends what you like. And this is like really, it's been, as they say, trained on postmodern poetry, right? So it's producing very strange language. But you could train it on biology textbooks or chats with your friends if you wanted to make a replication of your own voice, or a parody of your entire school, or something, right? Like there's a lot of ground here. And if you think about the prompt engineering that Harley was talking about, that's when you put in a tiny little phrase and then that acts like a seed in a conversation. But this was more like, I trained it on a whole mass of poems, and then it would just spit out hundreds of thousands of them. So that became an art installation where the video of the carving of these poems was projected onto a plinth, and Harley and Ryan from Antiism Books helped with the design of that. And then this weird use of machine learning, which artificial intelligence is also called machine learning, to produce this device where with your hands, you can, every phrase is attached to your fingers, and when you move your fingers off stage, you come out with a new phrase. So you could read the entire books, and your fingers modulate the sound. They shift because it's an artificial intelligence algorithm which is reading your hands. So then there was poet friends of mine who came through and began to read some of these videos as
The
they go along.
houses chased on fat suits in the wind. Then Nellie walked there, a god whose minds hold us if we live in the land where are the shadowed, green and wet thing that is full in fear when something sparred our.
And what happens is, like, when you've got that much stuff, so I took some of the raw stuff and some of the stuff that I'd carved, and I found a bunch of my friends who were academics, and they wrote these generous essays, and there's the project. It's like a machine-enhanced muse. You just become like a cybernetic thing. So that's what you're going to become. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's what's in the future for you and your children and everyone you know. Welcome. So today, we're going to start that process of shifting your molecules of your synapses over into that cybernetic formulation. Cybernetic, what does that word mean? It means kind of part machine, like in a feedback loop. You're already that way. You look at Facebook, you look at Instagram, you look at your phone, you're already engaged in these feedback loops. So you may as well learn how to master a few of the tools that are coming out. So let's see if I can go to my next slide. Oh, there we go. There we have it. That's the first slide. So probably you're not interested too much in large language models, but you've been dragged here by your school. But they are fascinating. They're getting really big and they're changing very fast. So as they change, the size of these models shifts. And some of the ethical implications of them are very profound. Like, human history is full of racist, sexist language. That's just true. Humans are rough on each other sometimes. Most human beings are decent, but language itself carries the residue of that. So Timnit Gebru has been a profound influence on that ethical AI movement. And she's asking incredible questions. She got fired by Google because she was asking profound, troublesome questions. And then she started her own organization called DARE. Joy Buolamwini, who is in this movie called Coded Bias that's on Netflix, I think. And so that's fascinating look at what's called algorithmic bias, right? And that's going to be a large part of what constitutes an influence on your life as well. You know, how you're analyzed, who you become within society is all being decided by these algorithms. And whatever, this is just from a recent article, whatever GPT-3's failings, it learned them from humans. So whatever the flaws of human society are, they can be amplified by these machines, or we can find ways to modulate them, to really establish compassion and equanimity, right, for other beings, like respect for everyone. So that's also the challenge of these models. There's a lot of papers on these, and you can look at them. We'll share the slides with you if you want to, become a quasi-expert or pretend to be one, as I'm pretending, right? You look online and you can find these things in an afternoon. You create a slideshow, and you all seem profound. That's also the essence of the world we live in, where everyone is an instant expert, right? Abhishek Gupta, he is really an expert on ethics of AI. He's local. He's running this very very crucial group. So if you're moved by those questions, go look up the Montreal Ethics group and Abhishek. Another group is AI Now, that's in New York City, run by Meredith Whittaker and other people, very much socially engaged, artificial intelligence. MIT is getting into that, ethical responsibilities of computing. And here at Concordia, there's the Indigenous Protocol and Artificial Intelligence Working Group that is run by Jason Lewis. And I came in early, and Jason Lewis was mentioned in the last presentation. So that's 2 shout outs to Jason today, just like that. Okay, anyway, Jason is incredible. So he did this Indigenous Protocol, which is like in August 2020, with a group of other authors to say, what is Indigenous ethical frameworks, what can they contribute to the evolution and growth of this large-scale, massive change of culture that's going on? Because it's going to take your language, it's going to take your words, and then it's going to create bots out of you, and it's going to create classification algorithms, and it's going to decide whether you get a job, or you know, what neighborhood you can live in, and all these, there's weird ramifications. And and it's changing very, very fast. So in order to get to our playground, we'll go through this very, very fast. Not meant to be remembered, but in March 2020, GPT-3 comes out. What is GPT-3? It's the biggest model and machine for generating language using AI that's been made so far. Okay, so now hold on to your hats. July 16th, about a year later, you've got Facebook brings out a chat bot that has memory, sophisticated conversations. And then December, about 6 months ago, there's a 280 billion parameter language model called Gopher that's coming out of DeepMind, okay? So now GPT-3 is 175 billion parameters. Now it's up to 280 billion parameters. The models in China are even bigger. This is the largest, it's a 20 billion model. This is the largest publicly accessible. This is an open source language initiative. So the others are corporations. They own you. They own us all in some ways. And then Chinchilla. This came out of DeepMind really recently here. This is about March 29th. When is that? That was March 29th, a month and a half ago, something like that. So what it does is it outperforms all the bigger models because they trained it on even more data. So the larger the amount that you read, the more intellectual you can seem to be. And it's the same with computer algorithms. So now April 4th, not so long ago, we have a 540 billion parameter model coming out of Google AI. And that's designed to not just be about language, but to be about images, sound, video, everything. It's a step towards general AI. Hello, how do you feel today? How did you sleep? What show would you like to watch? I know what you want to listen to. That sort of stuff is coming. It's on its way. And then there's Flamingo. What was that? April 28th, 2022. This one takes Chinchilla, the language model, and combines it so you can ask questions about video. So it can identify really sophisticated, nuanced things, like the example on the side there with that bowl of spaghetti. It's made out of wool. If you read that, what is the monster made out of? And the AI gets it wrong. It says it's made out of vegetables. And then the prompt, the human, corrects it and says it's made out of kind of fabric. Can you see what kind? And the AI gets it. They're very, 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 very scarily intelligent. And, oh, it doesn't stop there. May 3rd. What day is it today? May 11th? Like this is a week ago, right? So this is the last 6 months. So that's kind of the world you're living in here. This is, again, exactly the same size as GPT-3, which we are going to play with in just a moment, except it's been optimized to be trained, to be created at 1/7 the carbon footprint, which is probably a good idea because it's getting hot outside. Okay, so onward. 30% of the code on GitHub is now written by or suggested by an AI. 4.5 billion words, is it? Yes, per day. are now generated by this device that you will play with. 4.5 billion. That's a lot of school reports. That's a lot of plagiarism. You cannot fact check that. Everyone is now a hybrid organism. That's the new reality. So this is a chart that kind of details the changes in the data sizes and all that stuff. And now we were at what we were going to call the workshop.
Sure.
I like that idea, playground, right? Like workshop, you know, commodification, labor, no. Playground, earth and play. So let's go play. So phones, laptops out, everyone connect. And
Dave,
our first play, if we want to do it that way, do we have time?
David, do you want to just address a question in the chat? I don't know if,
Okay.
I think my mic is off. Thanks, Makai. Max, you had a question. Do you want to just pop in and ask it yourself? Max Langlois? If not, I can read it out for you.
We can't find it.
Oh, yeah.
It's somewhere.
Go for it, Max.
Yeah, so I can ask it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering what are the limits and but I guess this is going to come up as you do, you go through the workshop. But I wanted to hear from Harley in terms of his experimentations with bookmaking and publishing. What were the main kind of limits and frustrations or things that he wanted to obtain from GPT-3 and that wouldn't work? So I was just curious, because you didn't touch on this, I think.
Sure. I mean, personally, I have like zero background in computer science or any programming. So there's a lot you could do if you have these skills. There's a lot you could do, I guess, on your own machine where you can use TensorFlow and Python and different languages to better engage with the technology. And I personally was working directly in the playground and just kind of stumbling around. I had a bit of a training, coaching with David leading up to this, but I think in general, as working with it in the playground, you're going to find that it's like coherence is the one main challenge, and trying to make sense of stuff where really there is no sense. Sometimes there just really is no sense to the output. And the greatest pitfall that I found was that you could quickly generate way too much text that you're just spending all your time, and you're like, I would say wasting my time reading all these outputs that just didn't make it, it's kind of I don't know, at a certain point, you're like judging whether the value is there to read all this output. So a workaround or something I would suggest is to turn down the output, the token output, and like the generations that you're getting. Quickly evaluate if it's working or not, it's what you're after, and then you turn that up a bit when you need to. But for me, that was it. Just the overproductive, like the hyper-productive nature of it, and then finding the time to review it and edit it. So
I'd agree. Is that okay, Max?
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for this answer. And it's cool that you mentioned that, Harley, because as I was listening to the presentation, I was like, wow, all these possibilities, and I don't know much about it. I've heard some of these things, but I was like, this is also a supermodel for gigantic quantities, because you were mentioning plastic and waste and how you were trying to reintegrate that. And this GPT-3 thing is also a plan for mega semantic pollution. You're talking about an over output, or I don't know what word you used, but it's like we're already living in a world where there's an overflow of information and of bad information and information generated by robots, and this is just taking it to the next level. So I was was just curious about what about publishing and semantic pollution at a scale that is just has never been imaginable before. So
okay, so
thanks for the answer.
It's great. It's great. Can you sign up at openai.com for a playground license? Anyone out there can also do this on your phones. And then I think what we should do is leap directly
for sure
into GPT-3, and let's generate some semantic pollution.
We can show exactly. No, that's a great, thanks, Max. That is like hitting the nail on the head. that is that's one of the challenges right now with it, I see too. And as a publisher and as just as a user and reader online, that's it. A lot of fake news, a lot of fake documents, and there's just so much to read already that it's kind of scary to think that it's just going to generate so much more. We'll share our view of the playground here. I've saved a couple of prompts just to show this book idea generator. You'll see in my prompt, which is here, I've gathered a few different examples, and just the structure, how I've placed it in my the prompt, the conceptual art ideas for books made from post-consumer waste materials and trash. I then go on to list the type of output that I want to have, some examples of books that I've gathered. Some of these were actually generations that I really liked, and I include them in my prompt from other trials and testing. Some of them I just completely made up, like the plastic book. Well, this is just describing the book I did make in the format that I want to have the output. So it's going to find these patterns. It's going to start to generate more. So if we want to just go down below, I'm going to submit. I'm going to check my output over here. This is all predetermined. These are all settings that I saved before. I believe I'm supposed to review this before. So it's just going off the book as a bed, and it's suggesting a new one, book as art, book as sculpture. And I've grown accustomed to just quickly scanning over and deleting stuff if I'm not feeling it, I don't know if we even need to read this out, but book as art, a book which is only made out of paper and thread, i.e. there is no binding. Okay, thinking about that, could I make this? This is how I kind of go through my outputs. I don't always read everything. I just quickly judge if it's something interesting that I could use, So every time we hit generate again, I could adjust some things, hit generate again. And again, being sure that I'm not generating too high. If I find something is, if I do a slight adjustment on the temperature, often that will be enough to set it in another direction. And what do you think?
Can I play a little
bit? Please, yeah, please,
okay.
Please.
So I'm just going to launch blank, right? So why don't we start with why does semantic pollution exist, right? Because that was you're using a very sophisticated prompt. And what you can see in Harley's prompt is if you put something like 1, this item 2, this item 3, you're going to get a list of numbered items. If you put a conversation, you're going to get a conversation. And there's a way using to build a chatbot so it responds and it stops at your name, and then you put in another prompt and then it continues. So it's a pattern generation device. So maybe everyone can just put in a weird little question, and right now there's a new engine, the DaVinci 002 that you'll see here, and that's the best engine right now. The temperature, that's the default setting. I tend to like a little crazy. I go a little up on this, right, myself. Other people like a little normalcy if you want to keep things simple, right? Like we set it to 0.15, maybe we're going to get the sun is in the sky or something, right? And if we set it to 1, maybe it's going to say something weird. So let's set it to 1 and see what we get. We might not get anything. Yeah. And so now our essay is beginning to be written. We're feeling quite intelligent about everything. It's thinking or it's stalled, I don't know. Let's give it another shot.
Sometimes just a space or something will be enough to throw it off.
Yeah, effectively.
Or if it feels like it's finished, the thought's complete there, it will, a stop sequence will come up with this, I think.
And it's like having a pet or a child or a brother or a friend or any creature or device that's not quite perfect. And at any point, if anyone has a good prompt with a good response, please interrupt us. At this point, we become interactive. We'd like to hear from the group, from you, what's happening on your screens. So, does anyone have anything they'd like to share? And Harley can also show you presets.
Sure, I'm gonna go, well, if anybody, yeah, please jump in. If anybody online too, if anybody wants to go off mute and share anything. I'm gonna show you a chat. So this is based, the prompt here that we're seeing, it's based off the example given by OpenAI for just a basic chatbot. You know what, I'm gonna open that one first so we can see what that looks like, the basic chat. Conversation with an AI assistant. The assistant is helpful, creative, clever, and very friendly. So between this, the structure immediately we see between the chat, human, AI, human, colon, the stop sequences we see on the side, human, AI as words where it will stop at, and the inject and restart texts. So both every time you see, you know, it's gonna start again or stop again based on these texts here. So that's a very simple structure of a prompt for a chatbot. You can go right in and start adjusting this.
Can I? Yeah?
Yeah. This might be a good one to start asking any questions, really.
Yeah, does anyone have questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started like how old are you was my first question, and it just responded as if it was a human. I said, are you? And it says, I was like, who is your mother? Sarah is my mother, so it came up with the name Sarah. And then said, is she a computer? Was my question. And it responded, no, she's not a computer. And then I was like, what does she look like? And it blocked it. It said the content warning. Okay. It was sort of like saying there might be some stuff that's sensitive coming up, but it basically described what a human being looks like. You know, has 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a torso. But it was sort of interesting that it, you know, I'm trying to see if it recognizes what it is. I think that's an interesting way to sort of like, as a human, engage with this. I'm just curious if it's designed to answer however you put in the prompts on the right? So I didn't put anything on the right in the parameters.
So you left the default parameters.
I left everything there, yeah. So
and it was blank at top. There was no prompt.
Text DaVinci, temperature 15, and then I left everything else. But it's still quite, you know, engaging in that sense. Like it's
Yeah, I think it's having a prompt which structures the chat helps. You know what I mean? You can really control that, because what in your case there, I think you called the 0 shot, where there is no prompt at all. A few shot we would give a few examples, few examples to start that prompt. But in that case where it's blank, well, perhaps if you generate it a second time now, it might actually just continue your question the next time around. You know what I mean? So there's a bit of, you know, structure missing there. But I mean, of course, like as far as prediction goes, that was probably, you know, predicted that, well, this is probably going to be a chat, you know. But let's see.
I'm just playing around.
David, you're off to the race. You're having a conversation here with
ourselves,
the assistant, ourselves.
Oh, it's gone in a loop. Oh, we should do breakout rooms. Just kidding.
Now this was, I actually tried this, I'll be totally honest, like preparing for the workshop, I was definitely asking questions like, how should I prepare for this workshop? And it gave me great advice, you know? Like, and you know, I think it's amazing to have a tool like this that you could compare to a friend or a colleague or a peer or something, where like when you're ready to engage with it, it's right there. If you want to play around and, you know, this idea of like lateral thinking or, you know, and but when you're ready to do it and having it anytime just to sit down and start helping you with your brainstorming process, really, I think it's a great tool for this. And yeah, it loses coherence, and maybe it's not you know, the returns are questionable, but I do find it as a great tool. You had a question? Yeah. Anna, can we get the mic over?
So I just put in a very basic question, which was, why is our planet heating up so quickly? And it gave me quite a lot of text, and I noticed at the end it even gave me sources, which I found
Probably
that to
not
be,
accurate sources.
Well, actually, I looked into both of them, and they're links.
Really?
So I checked both links, and they're both real things.
Are there? They are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which really surprised me. It's kind of cool that it came out with that, and the text is actually really good as well. So
yeah, in my
it
experience,
impressed
it's
me.
very much hit and miss with sometimes it will create like, detail all these references and cite these people. And often when I check, I do a lot of fact checking with the output, and I generally just assume that it's all like BS. Like I kind of stop that but in the future, I think the GPT-4 and the next iterations that should work. Anna, no? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that.
That was excellent. Hey, oh, nice walk.
Thanks. I'm actually just interested in how this is working. Right now, is it in a certain state that it's going to predict what's coming next, and such that if we go up and delete previous prompts, would we expect the same output after from things that have already been written previously?
Do you want to do it again?
Like, not delete all of that. That's not what I meant. If, let's say, you deleted the first 2 questions at the top, does that change anything?
Yes.
Or is it in a current state that it's learned everything that it's learned and it's just going to go from there?
First of all, I should point out that I'm not fully, I'm not a technician for this. I'm not fully trained on how to use this. I'm really learning as I go, and with a little bit of coaching, what I'm reading and learning online. I'm gonna leave some resources at the end we could share. There are some great YouTube videos and accounts that explore this. One is Alan D. Thompson. He has a chatbot called Lida, and he has about 50 videos where he's chatting back and forth. And anyways, he animates with video and gives it a voice and everything, but it's really just the brain, or the chatbot is just what we see here. And yes, if you do go, from my experience, if you do go back up and change anything, it's running back to the beginning of this prompt. Everything in the window, it's going back to the start and going back down again. There may be some ways to adjust this and change it, but it really has that's its memory. Like, it's what we can fit in this window. So often these examples that are offered from OpenAI, this basic chatbot one, Alan Thompson built off that one, and you can see some of these helpful, creative, clever, he built off that. Actually, my chatbot, do you mind opening the bone folder? I don't know, this bone folder chat. So I don't know how much of it is really effective or contributing to the generations, but I pulled part of this from other examples of the prompt. Like, I kind of pieced together my own prompt based on some others here, and I named it Bone Folder. It's like one of my trusty tools in the bindery. A powerful human AI. What did I add? A wise and considerate intelligence with an interest in independent book publishing and contemporary art. I don't know if that's really contributing a whole lot, but I believe it is, from what I've been, the returns I'm getting. Interest other offers creative ideas for combining machine learning techniques with the practice of making the artist's book. So you can see how I've added in, draws on the wisdom of Muriel Cooper, Margaret Bowden, Amaranth Borsak, Donald Shawn, and so yeah, I think it does come through. I find it, maybe I'm projecting or imagining this, but it does pull on what was there in the training. So beyond that, I should mention, I have fine-tuned this version. On the right, you'll see the engine is the DaVinci engine which I fine-tuned. And as far as challenges, that was one of the main challenges. I took it I really gave myself the challenge of figuring out fine-tuning, and there was a little bit of Python and some programming involved, and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be so hard, and I slaved over it, but just through my procrastination. Once it actually worked, I realized how simple it was. I was using Google Sheets to paste in my examples. I output a CSV. I uploaded that through Terminal, but it was like so simple to do. So I'd say don't be afraid from fine tuning if you want to go further with this. And I won't disclose everything that I used in my fine tuning, but it was related to my literature review for school. I wanted to try it out with really with the text I'm reading and some of the stuff. So I did pull from here and there and tune to this. So there is a background, I suppose, like a background knowledge base that I'd fine tuned in as well. But in most examples and dropping that out, it still works off your prompt. I find that with the fine tuning, my returns are a lot weirder. I don't know what that says about me and what I chose to put in there, but it gets pretty bizarre.
Please.
I just completed one of my assignments.
No way. Can you explain what you did? Sorry, Alec. Oh, okay.
No. So we have a class called Financial Ed, and I have to explain identity theft.
Okay.
So I just started typing, identity theft is a crime that exploits unsuspecting individuals, and I just completed like 500 words, so it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
And it continued, the crime involves taking the personal information of an individual and using that information to open new accounts, make purchases, or access existing accounts. The personal information can be anything from name and address to social security number or bank account number. And it explains all the different types of identity thefts. So it's kind of crazy.
And some of it might be directly pulled from Wikipedia, but a lot of it will be, in the same way that we write our own essays by pulling stuff from places and putting it in our own words. A lot of it will be written in words that have never been seen before, in strings that don't occur on the internet. It's super weird time to be thinking about what is authorship, right? Because the prompt engineering, and you mentioned the word fine tuning. Does anyone know what fine tuning is? That's an important concept. Maybe we should explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to explain it a bit. Like, what's your take on it? Did you use fine tuning for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your project rewrites. That's what I mean. Pretty much, it's all this, and that's gathering this whole corpus of text that you use to literally train it.
Well, when you train, you make a model, but in these cases, you're being given a model, which already exists, like a planet, and the fine tuning is like shifting the ecology of that planet. So fine tuning would be if you have a bunch of books that you admire very, very much. The solidity of the planet is all of the syntactical and paradigmatic, the paradigms and the semantic, the idea about meaning, all of that stuff that's within language that's been learned by this big corporate model. Now you add a few of your books and you say, use all that architecture of the syntax and the paradigms and the semantics, but bring in this particular language. So if you have a very particular language you like to use in games, right? The kind of slang, you could teach this model a very peculiar crossover slang from game or nerd or geek or manga culture, whatever it is. And then all of the syntactical, architectural, and anatomical energy of the language model now becomes used within that slang. So fine-tuning just says, your culture is here, right? So I've never done that with OpenAI. You used Python and you uploaded a little bit of text. And
it was. What I'll do now is maybe I'll show you an example that I used to prepare for the the fine-tuning process. That was great, by the way, like the chat.
It's fun.
It's gone. It's gone for,
It's gone forever.
I was preparing very short, I guess, descriptions of different artists' books. And one thing I was doing is I was pulling from catalog entries. So from the MoMA, from various sources, I'd pull these long, copy and paste these long catalog entries, and then I was using playground to actually take that, synthesize it, and output a much shorter version that I could use in the format that I was looking to have. Those returns I would then paste into my sheets. So like my Google Sheets or Excel sheet or whatever, I would take that, you're pasting in line items. So every time you paste in a line, that's one entry. You could they could be entire pages of text, but that's one entry. And it's recommended to have a couple thousand of these entries. So a quick way that I was thinking is like, wow, that's a lot of data entry. If I was to do this manually, to go in all these catalog entries, which are dense and certain like different format different ways. So I would show the reformatted entry here. It's still quite long, but this was a lot more like what I was after, like a concise explanation for the book, pull the binding where I needed it to be, gather it all together. So now I would come in and I would actually, so I'd copy my catalog entry that I'd find online, whatever format or mess it was in, paste it in here, and it would gather it together and me in this nice clean catalog entry. So that was all of a sudden eliminating a ton of data entry and work. And I think, I mean, just right there, you could probably find other ways to apply this, to some work that you might be doing. So that was just one step that I was using just to even make my fine-tuning data set. I won't show off like a screen there with that, but it's literally an Excel sheet. It's a very simple, very quick to find instructions for this, but there's a little bit of way how you format. Like the prompt, I was leaving it blank. For open-ended generation is what I'm doing. And then I'd have these entries. So I took on a couple fine-tuning projects so far. The artist book generator, the other one is the only example I have for you now, that book idea generator. But if we were to substitute that out, I'd say like you could very quickly give like 2 examples of something else altogether, to change this one.
You write the longest prompts. That's the essence of it. Also, it is really a playground. So I use it in ways where I usually write one phrase, and then I hit submit and I play around. When you write these, it's like an essay, and then you hit return.
I don't know if
you really wanted.
I don't know how well it works though, how effective that is. If we go into examples here, this is like just getting into it. This is I'd say the best way to play around and understand how you might be able to use it. Pick any of these examples and just start to change the language. We wanted to, these are all provided. So too long didn't read, this is a good one. You just paste a large body of text in, it's gonna shorten it. But the let's see, 1 second. Analogy maker is a fun one. So here we get an example. It shows you the settings. And then when we open, so if somebody wants to propose anything, David, you want to choose one? Questions are like arrows, let's say.
I've never used this example.
No?
It just goes in blank.
Okay.
It's quite beautiful. I could show one thing,
yeah.
Which is just I got into a mode of working with GPT-3, and that's a more technical look at the word temperature. Like it's really a mathematical model of what's happening in the parameter space. But I wrote an essay that was submitted to this kind of art exhibit with 2 other people. And we fed GPT-3 stuff that had been made by GPT-3. And what we did is, as we did it over and over, we kind of lost track of what parameters we'd used, and we would forget what happened. So we began to cut and paste into a Google Doc this sort of thing to get all of the parameters, but to get the parameters from this playground space, like say for instance that, you just say view code, and then you can cut and paste that. So then you get an idea of what engine you used, what prompt you used, what temperature, and that can all change it. And then you begin to get a sense of how this particular machine is going to modify the language that you put in. It's like learning how to ride a bicycle, because the machine can produce very different results as you move these sliders around. There's not that many sliders, controlled by a corporation, but it's still quite potent, the differences go on. So that's just an aside in terms of what you can do if you feel like really practicing with the machine.
I'm just curious if anybody online wanted to jump in and have any examples, or if anybody else has tried anything.
Is anyone online?
Is anyone online still?
Oh, there is actually. There's a few people there.
And has anyone else here, just while we've been speaking, has anyone else generated anything they want to share? Well, what do you, and does anybody have any questions? Otherwise.
And how many assignments have you finished? It will. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's suggesting 30% of the code. It can do math as well. You know, sorry. But you know, ultimately, you know, people are hybridized anyway, and it takes an intellectual, intelligent human to operate the very complex algorithm that's there. So maybe we can support that in particular contexts. It's really a creative opportunity for humanity, I think, to evolve in tandem with this machine.
Can I share something?
Please. Please.
So I just took The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. I pasted the first stanza, I'd finished the whole poem. So then I went back, I just pasted the first 2 lines, and I changed the 3rd line to said, while I nodded, I found myself reading about fractals. And then it started merging Edgar Allan Poe's style of poem in The Raven with fractal geometry. And then I asked it, okay, so the cobwebs must link to Mandelbrot set. Then it came up with a whole poem based on the Raven and infinity and dreams and symbols and Mandelbrot sets, and just like merged it into one big poem. So that was pretty entertaining.
Wild.
Let's give it a shot, try here. That's an excellent prompt. I'm not that good as a typer, am I? Okay. Is this something like it?
But I deleted the other ones after so that it was reverting back to the Raven if you left too much of the Raven in there.
So a little bit like that?
Yeah.
And the wiki said, and the fractal said, and the Raven never fitting. Ah, demon is dreaming. There's a Raven in the library. And then it's getting traditional again,
Yeah.
right? Huh.
I was going back and I was getting it more after.
So just a crowdsource thing. What are folks interested? 1 or 2 words each, like a subject or a topic or something. Okay. Now, am I spelling it right? No. Ah! H-A-R-U. Oh. Oh, I'm terrible at I'm terrible at spelling. K-M-A-I like that? Okay, so why don't we try generate a synopsis of a novel. Yeah, what's going on in there? Is it good? Okay. No. Stop. Well, that's just terrible. Any other details about Murakami? Yeah. Isn't that a Beatles song? Good. Is this accurate?
Was it 87? Is it really?
Really?
Okay, yeah, that's right. Not, that sounds about right.
Oh. And is there a friend, Kazuki? To Midori? Wow.
Okay.
So let's put in a presence penalty, like, so we want new tokens and frequency. This is going to push the subject away a little bit. Well, let's go all the way. Let's see if we can go far. Oh, it's still on track.
Wow.
Oh, uh-oh. Okay, everybody shut their eyes. Everybody shut their eyes. Nothing happened here. This didn't occur. This event is now being, no.
Let's jump to another one.
I think what it was is a coming of age story. Like, it's amazing how delicate the content filters in this device. Like, wow, okay. And we're pretty close to finishing. We're 5 minutes away from, you having lost your chance to produce some beautiful prompt for us.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for
Last
that.
chances right
That
now.
was intriguing.
I'll just try a quick continuation. Anybody give me a character reference here? Suggest a personality?
A fictional one? Or
no, anything in the media, I'd say, would probably be a good one. Okay, and another one.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, speaking to someone from an entirely different domain. Like, what's an entirely, like a physicist or like someone else that you follow who's not a pop star?
Or time. Or historical, yeah.
Yeah. In the Elizabethan era, well dressed as Winnie the Pooh. Who? Richard Feynman. Oh, wow. I think it's Feynnman. See? Feyn.
By who?
Is it N and then MAN? Okay, so you got it right. NMAN. Man.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, so I didn't hear
Physicist.
properly. And what are they talking about?
Oh, they're discussing Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, of course.
This conversation really occurred.
All right, let's try this. I'm gonna turn the length a little higher. Right, that's a classic scene.
Yeah, I'm not really getting a full-on physicist rap vibe.
No.
Yeah.
But you see, we could, of course, we could add to this. We could add all kinds of topics. Yeah, it's fun adding we could add a 200-word topic in here and exploring all kinds of things, and then turn up the return on the length. So that's how I would maybe explore like these transcriptions. I have on the table over here, I do have one book where I've gathered and kind of cherry-picked all the generations that I thought were maybe interesting to share. So that is over here. Gerhard Richter, I had speaking with the singer from Death Throne, a black metal, like a death metal band, and talking about the color gray, for example. Like, that's one I generated earlier.
So it's your gig, Harley, but I think it's maybe time to go explore your exhibit.
I think,
and say goodbye to.
Do you want to, can we get the camera and just do a quick walkthrough before we end? Was there any other questions first or online? All right, I'll just do a quick walkthrough of the space if you can with the iPad.
Awesome.
Is that
Hey,
possible, Anna?
yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Hey, Keone, do you want to come over here and help out? Thank you. Running. Just running.
It's just weird.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so I hope you can see. I'll start with my plant here. Really concerned. Did not get a chance to water, and I think the construction, the concrete and the newspaper that I used as the block has been really sucking away all moisture. So this plant's having a really hard time. If we can look from this side, this book, this description I generated with the prompt artist book generator I showed you. So the return was a book made entirely of concrete with a hole cut out at the top for plants to grow through. The pages are made from shredded newspaper. The cover is a cast concrete slab that is also used as the roof. I actually made this paper with the help of some friends at Atelier Khatai, a newspaper stock that I created there. Another quick one here, the Book of Money. So this one, this paper, again, made it with Atelier Khatai, but had some shredded US currency that I sprinkled in. After the prompt was given, I found the pages are printed entirely in money. The book structure is made entirely from paper currency. This book features the phrase, "I have no idea why," repeated and over again. So I actually had an embossing die created for that title, "I have no idea why," and that's it. I just stamped throughout the book here. I won't show you all, but this one here, tire book, I've called this one. This book was made according to the following description: a book with the covers made from a salvaged truck tire. That was it. There was nothing more to the generation, but I thought, well, that would be a fun one to make. I do have one book here called Too Long Don't Read. This, like I said, I did collect a bunch of generations and added them in. So this is sort of like cherry-picked generations from, my time playing with the API. And I'd love it if anybody does get a chance to look at this to make any notes that they'd like. So it says annotation, welcome, and here again, everything pasted in. You'll see a little parrot every once in a while, and this the metaphor, comparison to a parrot, comparing GPT-3 to a parrot, I think is a great one. But I want to thank everyone for coming today, both online and in person, and the group here today. So yeah. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. And if there aren't any other questions, David, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Anna? Okay, I think we'll call it to a close then. Again, thanks everybody online for joining. Yeah, enjoy the sun today.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Harley. All right, folks, thanks Harley and David for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. That was super fun. I'm going to rewatch that video and I'm going to write all of my, I hope my bosses are listening now, all of my reports using. Anyhow, folks, we are going to close up the Zoom. Thanks again for joining us. If you want to reflect on what's been shared today, the video is already up on our YouTube channel. So go to Concordia University 4th Space and you'll see that.